All right, here we are, another week around the trash fire. Your host Matthias, along with the boy.
John.
I'm excited for this week. There's a
Yes,
lot of new stuff.
yes, lots of new stuff. Not in a Sunday preview, but other things.
Other things, some stuff that's not even Warhammer.
I know. Keep forgetting that other games exist in this world.
It's true.
It's not Warhammer or Magic or D&D.
Yeah, well, I only play one of those three. So, but let's get into this. So moving on here, we have Arks of Omen. I thought it was gonna be a lot more. They only added one more video after the last time we talked about it.
Yeah.
So it's just the Hound saying how the beast is coming around.
Yay. More vague.
Yeah, who don't
Vague
you
stuff.
don't like it to be vague?
I mean, the thing for me, especially, having worked for Games Workshop, it's like something's gonna come out eventually. That's just my default state of mind. So it's like, yeah, something's gonna come out eventually.
Yeah, well, I mean, GW has not been good with hiding its leaks, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's been pretty wide open every time they try to release something. I mean, this whole year was pretty much predicted, at least on the 40K side.
Yeah, we did have that massive leak in terms of releases. That was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing out of that leak that came out of it was what are they gonna remake? Because there was some vague stuff in there, like for the Imperial
Yeah,
Guard or the World Eaters. There's like zero information,
right.
but everything else was pretty wide open. But here we are, and I'm sure if I had dug deeper, I probably know what it's gonna be. But
Yeah.
I haven't really done it because I like to keep the magic, going. But there we go. That is the last tarot card. So not much out of that. Now, on to something that I was hyped for. The video game awards happened. I don't know if you watched it or you cared about it at all.
Yeah, I actually randomly I got home and I was like, oh, let's see what's on YouTube. Because I was actually my a day I wanted to just stay home and, you know, be lazy and relax. And bam, video game awards and bam, Space Marine 2.
Space Marine 2. We actually got a little more stuff out of it. And I must say, I mean, the game already had my money, but I'm hooked. I'm already hooked on it.
Did I make my crazy my oath in the podcast? I did it in real life, but I don't think I involved you in it. My Space Marine 2 10th edition oath.
Nope, I can't say that you have.
Okay, now it's on record. If Space Marine 2 coincides with 10th edition, the 10th edition launch, I will buy you a copy.
You'll buy me a copy?
I'll buy you a copy. I am because they never do this, and if they do this piece of genius marketing move, I will reward them by buying people Space Marine 2, just giving them money. Because like 40K is, are you playing the trailer?
I am playing the trailer, yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I'll talk. 40K is like at the cusp of being nerdy mainstream. I mean, it's not like gonna be Star Wars, right? It's not gonna be
Not yet.
Lord of the Rings, or right. But it's getting there in terms of popularity. It's becoming more and more of a household name in the geek realm, like Magic and D&D. And I think if Space Marine 2 isn't garbage, if it's as good as the first one, right? At the minimum, and it comes out with 10th edition, this will push Games Workshop, I think, into the Magic territory, into the D&D territory, because now you have a pretty quality triple A-ish game tied to a new product launch. And there's already the excitement generated from an edition launch. I mean, right now I was talking to my 30K group about how, like, oh, we kind of degap about 40K right now, but when 10th edition comes and we get those Primaris Assault Marines and Terminators, you bet we're gonna hop on it. And if they compound that with a Space Marine 2 launch, that's going to be crazy.
It would be nice.
Yeah, but I will
But
buy you a copy if that happens.
when has GW ever done something like that?
Exactly. That's also why, like, it's kind of a bet for myself too. It's like there's no way they're not that smart in terms of marketing, because their marketing in terms of product tie-in with media, it's pretty bad. Like, the example our buddy Donnie uses a lot is Siege of Terra came with no model releases. Like, if Siege of Terra released with 30K 2.0, it would be crazy, but it didn't. So they're pretty bad at that stuff. The last time they did it successfully was with Lord of the Rings, but that was a very hands-on thing with the Lord of the Rings people at New Line. So yeah, I don't know if this is gonna happen, but we'll see. We will see.
Well, I mean, all we know is 2023. That is all we know.
2023.
Yep, we got that, and then some other gaming news. Oh, but first, I just want to say that collector's edition. What a model. They just
I know.
have. What a
Did you
model.
hear about the fiasco with the Diablo 4 Collector's Edition?
No. What was it?
So the Diablo 4 collectors, the fancy one, kind of like the one you're talking about with the Space Marine one with the figure and the box and the art. You know talking about that kind of level of collector's edition?
Yeah.
It doesn't come with the game.
Really?
Yeah, it's just that stuff. Doesn't come with the game.
And how
Now,
much
I
is that?
mean, I think it's cheaper than if the game was included. They haven't released a price yet, but the talk is it's going to be cheaper than if the game was included. But it's just kind of funny that it's like, here's the collector's box for the game, but it doesn't come with the game. You got to buy that separately.
Yeah,
So they're not
it's a little
ripping you
weird.
off, you know? Yeah, but it's just weird. It's not a rip off. It's just weird. So
Yeah. Well,
that's what I
okay.
give them.
You do you, Diablo. Well, you do
I know, right?
you. Get that. Blood Bowl 3. I don't care. And then Chaos Gates gets a $15 DLC patch where
Ooh,
you can play as a not a redemptor, a dreadnought.
I'm thinking of getting that game. Does Steam still have sales?
They still have
That
sales.
was a
I
big
have
deal.
it. I just have not played it.
It. Oh, okay.
I bought it and I'm like, I'm gonna play this, and then I didn't play it.
They still have that Steam sharing feature. I want to try the
Uh,
game.
Probably. I'll send it. We'll see. We'll talk about that one later.
Yeah, and we can review Chaos Gate.
But yeah, there is that. That was all the obviously for all the Warhammer nerds. This was a great thing to see because it showed a little more gameplay. Showed how the Tyranids would you know act in the environment. It's good.
Mhm.
All you have to do, give a Space Marine 1 and just polish it up. Make it look good. And then obviously give us a good story cuz we want that as well.
Right.
But the combat gameplay, solid. Just give us more of that. But that is that. That's all that news there. Now we can go into the models.
Yes.
And obviously, we're going to start with our Sunday preview. And of course, we're getting the what is this thing called? Cursed City. The online missions coming out pretty much.
Yeah, it seems that this is gonna go out of print, and this is just their last run. Essentially, it's like the last chance to get this. We're gonna stop making this because they're terrible products. That's my
Oh,
opinion,
well,
and I
I,
like
I
it.
agree with
I love
that.
it. I like Cursed City, but I think these are bad products.
Yeah, it's a shame, really.
Yeah.
But honestly, expected because the if they're not if they don't pop off initially, I don't think they usually ever really support it, right? I mean, Warhammer Quest was more of the one you play it once kind of games and then you stop playing.
Yeah. I think it was really botched by the supply chain issues because to keep momentum up. I mean, first of all, the game went out of print for a while because cardboard became an endangered species for a bit. And Games Workshop, no word, just like, oh, it's out, or you couldn't buy it in the store, which killed hype. Then the expansion pack, well, and then the expansion packs were turned into Vampire Camp releases, so the models end up are just came with the Soul Blight release, and then models were not available with the expansions, which just kind of compounded on the hype dying, which is unfortunate because I think the game is a good game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just look at Blackstone Fortress. I mean, that game didn't last long either.
Yeah.
If it's not Kill Team, if it doesn't have that kind of hype around it,
I mean,
Warcry,
ultimately,
it just doesn't pop off well.
I think ultimately the problem with games like Blackstone Fort, which is also Warhammer Quest, with Warhammer Quest is that it's a board game that has really nice Warhammer Games Workshop minis, but they're too nice in the sense of like it's the Christmas morning test of how long does it take for you to open this and play it. If if the answer to that question is more than 1 hour, you have a problem. And it's gonna take an hour to at least an hour to build all these models before you can even play with the game, right?
Right, and not even
Like,
painted.
exactly. Like if it was released as like a Vampire Counts Battle Force, okay, you're getting it for the models, but being a marketing it, and it is a board game, and marketing it as a board game, but in reality, it's a board game with really fancy minis. You got to really build and paint. That could kill some of the hype there, I think, and especially in my experience.
Yeah. Well, here we are. Last run, I guess.
That's
They'll bring it back. They always will.
yeah,
It'll be like a Halloween kind of thing.
yeah.
Month of October. Moving on from that, we got the Horus Heresy. We got the good old
Yep, the
Ultramarine shoulders.
re-releases of stuff that has been out the past 10 years.
Yes, but now that it's all made to order.
But now it's made to order, yeah, if you want some. And you don't mind waiting 6 months to get them.
So you have the bodies, the heads, the shoulders, the Thousand Sun shoulders. That's pretty much that. You can show off the Thousand Suns heads. Because they probably don't want to get people confused.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Warhammer Plus, we got Lore Masters for Tzeentch and the Mortal Realms. That's about it. Unless you care about painting green armor. But that is our Sunday preview. Like we said, not too much in the Sunday preview this week. Which is fine. But because there's other stuff to talk about here. Like Heresy Thursday. And the Salamander upgrade kits. And here we go. And I like the helmets.
Yeah, these are great. I think these definitely go into the top 3 territory.
Yeah.
Along with Iron Hands and Sons of Horus, or one of those guys. The ones that don't just look like beakies with an icon. Yeah, these are great. Because they're still Mark 6, but they're also not just plain beakies.
Mm-hmm.
These are awesome. I like these. Good decision whoever made these.
I mean, these play kind of in the salamander aesthetic, like the actual salamander.
Right.
But it is done better than the wolf helmets from the Space Wolves.
Exactly. The Space Wolf ones just look kind of silly, but these actually look cool.
You see these helmets here? I could see these being on any Legion, really. Well, I mean, obviously not the ones with the flames on it. But, the smooth ones, I can see that being used for any kind of Legion.
Yeah.
Like, you just put it on a group of flamethrowers and be like, yeah, these helmets fit.
Yep. Absolutely.
So there we go. We got that, and we got the salamanders. And if I have to go with what John says, these are awful because they have trim on it.
I agreed. They have trim on it, which defeats the purpose of Mark 6 shoulder pads, in my opinion.
So these fall in the terrible category,
Yep.
according to John.
Yep. If you want trim, do Mark 4 or Mark 3.
There we go. That was the nice Salamander boys getting representation right there. But that's not all the 30k news we have. We also have an updated facts and free rules for classic
Yes.
Solar Auxilia.
Yes, and for the main armies.
We'll put this in your hands here.
Yep. So first thing, big clarification to return fire, which is the reaction that you do when someone shoots you. You get to shoot back. So initially, how the rule worked is you could wait until save rules were made, and feel no pain was rolled, see how many casualties you have, and then decide if you want to return fire or do an evade reaction, which gives you a defensive bonus. But they FAQ'd that and they changed it where you have to declare when to hit rolls are made, so you don't get to see the results. But the way they worded it, remove the part that said casualties are removed simultaneously between the fire and the the reacting unit and the active unit. So now you had a situation where it was unclear if casualties were removed before they get to. So if you're shooting someone and they react, it sounded like you would the guy whose turn it was would have to remove casualties before he got to shoot, which is weird because that makes shooting way more risky, you know. So, but it was unclear. It was unclear if that was intentional, and I mean most people just played it how it initially was, where it's simultaneous. But now the FAQ clears it up that yes, it is simultaneous, and you declare before hit rolls are made if you want to do the reaction or which reaction you want to do. So that's fixed, thankfully. Another big change is Shrouded, which is the Feel No Pain-esque rule, is now usable by Primarchs because the last FAQ it said you cannot use it if you're fearless. Well, Primarchs are fearless. All Primarchs are fearless by being a Primarch. And I believe Magnus and Corax had the Shrouded rule by default, so rules is written they couldn't use those. But they fixed that now and they could use it now, thankfully. Some changes to or some clarifications. Contemptor Dreadnoughts no longer get an extra attack because for having two close combat weapons. Because they had a kind of rule-ish thing on their profile that said if you have two close combat weapons, you get an extra attack. Well, the core rules already say that, if you remember from 7th edition. But because it existed in two places, some people barely so said it's stacked, so they would get +2 attacks. But now the FAQ clarified they only get +1 attack for having two close combat weapons. So the rule in their data sheet doesn't stack with the core rules. So that's a big change. For me as a Mechanicum player, they changed how Battlesmith works, which is the rule that lets you repair things. It no longer stacks with firing protocols, which is the rule that lets you fire multiple weapons, because before Battlesmith said instead of shooting a weapon, you could attempt to repair. So I would be repairing things 3 times because my tech priest Magos could shoot 3 times. So now they clarified if you do use that, you can only use it once per turn. You can't use it, or you can't even shoot other weapons if you use it. And they also clarified that robot magic, cyberthurgy works the same way. You cannot stack it with firing protocols. You can only use it once per turn. So nerf to Mechanicum, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal for me. It just means I have to play a little bit differently. So, but that was clarified, and that's the big change. And some clarifications with some rules with the new Solar Aux and Custodes book. I think one of the assassins didn't have an invul, so they gave them an invul. So it's just some stuff like that. Nothing crazy. No points changes. No huge balance updates. Attack bikes still make no sense. Armigers are still not vehicles, and so are immune to melta bombs. Well, not immune, but immune to haywire, and are not vulnerable to melta bombs, which makes no sense because armigers are in lore vehicles, but their unit type is not vehicle. So yeah, that does so that's still there. Some clarifications needed there, but I mean, overall, this is a step in the right direction. This is a way better fact than the last FAQ, and I just they just need to do more of this. The game is so. I mean, 30k isn't at the end of the day. It's very archaic in the sense of it's very old school where the rules aren't tight. Like if you compare it to Age of Sigmar, where the rules and like Star Wars Legion, which we're gonna talk about later, the rules feel like a lawyer document because you have to be specific because of the inevitable rules disputes. And 30K isn't like that. 30K has lots of ambiguities. I mean, for the first time in like 10 years, I played a game with someone and had to roll off to see which interpretation of the rule we were going to use because we just couldn't agree. And it was one of those things where it's mid game, so we're going to pick the interpretation that supports us. So we had to roll off for it. And I hate it when that happens in games. That the rules should be clear. That should not be a problem. But I mean, at least it's a step in the right direction. And in addition to the FAQ, they released extra units for Solar Auxilia. No extra units for Custodians, unfortunately. So 40k bikes and 40k Terminators do not have 30k rules. Best thing you can do is use the bikes as the 30k bikes and use the Terminators as the veteran Custodies. But they do not have separate rules in the Heresy. So that kind of sucks, but I mean, you know what? No, but it kind of sucks, to be honest. So but Solar Aux did get some rules. They got all the Baneblade variants, but they're all terrible. They're way too expensive. And you could tell these weren't play tested at all because so Space Marines can also get Baneblades, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Solar Aux Baneblade chassis vehicles are worse than the Space Marine one because so the big thing is their ballistic skill 3, so they hit on a 4 up. So talking in 40k terms, they're ballistic skill 4 up because they're crewed by humans, right? And the Space Marine versions are, same exact stats on the vehicle, except if they're ballistic skill 3 up because they're crewed by Space Marines. Well, it would make sense if the Solar Aux ones were cheaper, but they're not. They cost the exact same and are just worse for no reason. So it's stuff like that where a lot of the vehicles just don't make sense in terms of their points cost and how they function. I mean, and 30k is not a competitive game, so like the efficacy of units in terms of points isn't that big of a deal, or it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But sometimes it's just blatantly obvious that like, why does this vehicle cost 800 points when it has front armor 13, and there's a 600 point vehicle that has front armor 14? Right, it just makes no sense. But
Right.
there's some other units like the Forge World Carnodon, which is the Solar Auxilia / Militia Imperial Army Predator. It's a Forge World model that got rules. Kind of a mystery why it didn't make it into the book, considering it has a model that's being sold by Forge World. So that was added. Artillery pieces. So Forge World used to make these basilisks and medusas without the tank component, so they're just field artillery. Those got rules, which were cool. And some Malcador variants and some of the old obscure Forge ruled Imperial Guard vehicles got rules, which is cool for people who have them. None of them really stood out to me as something I want. It's more like, oh, if I had one, I would be happy that they got rules, but nothing really made me want to get one. Maybe the Carnodon because it's a fast attack predator. It's not a Lehman Russ. It's kind of different. So I can see myself picking that up eventually, or a squadron of 3 eventually. But overall, the document is fine unless you like Bane Blades. Then I'm sorry, go play. I can't even say go play 40k because Bane Blades are crap in 40k too, from what I heard. So
Yeah,
if you like Bane Blades, I'm sorry.
big units don't usually ever do well in 40k.
Yeah. So,
So
but there's that. Oh, you're saying?
I said so. It's funny that it parallels 30k that big units don't do anything.
Yeah, big units. The problem with the big units is they're just point. I mean, I guess like in 40k, a lot of them are pointed way too much for what they do. Like the a good example is the Space Marine Glaive, which is kind of like a Space Marine Baneblade with a giant Volkite cannon. It's super cool, and it's kind of neat. It's like a beam weapon that's strength 8, but the issue is like I think it's like AP 3 or AP 4. Either way, for the points you pay, it's like 700 points, almost 650, 700 points. The output it just isn't there. I mean, it's hard to kill, but it doesn't really do that much killing itself, which kind of sucks. But on the other hand, there's some vehicles like the Solar Auxilia Stormhammer, which is a resin super heavy that they have from Forge World, and it's pointed it properly. It doesn't have that much firepower, but you're not paying out of the butt for it. It's like 500 points. and it will do its job, right? And then you have stuff like the Acastus Porphyrion, which should be more expensive, but it's not. But tanks like the Stormhammer or vehicles like the Porphyrion are the minority. Most big vehicles, I noticed you pay more for their durability than their firepower. And there's just times in 30k, I'm sure well, less than 40k, but in 30k where killing things is more important than not dying, especially because objectives are scored in the end game.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to survive 6 turns, and most vehicles won't survive 6 turns. Maybe they'll survive a few extra turns because of their tankiness. But if you're scoring at the end of the game, it's probably better to just take things that are good at killing things rather than necessarily staying alive. And that's the problem with the big vehicles, is that they're good at not dying, but they don't throw out enough firepower for their points. At least in my opinion and my experience.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, there we go. That's the 30k updates are good. Still waiting on the Imperial Army and the Ruinstorm of Demon rules. I mean, Imperial Army is whatever because I'm playing Solrox, but I would like to play with my demons and still waiting for their PDF. I just want an announcement. Like, give us a time frame. When is this coming out? When should we expect it?
you know, soon TM.
I know, right? Soon, exactly. All we have right now is soon TM, and I need a little bit more than soon TM BW.
Oh, we'll have to just wait and see. Soon TM.
Yep. Soon TM.
Well, let's move on, shall we? To
Yeah.
our Necromunda segment here. We got two new models here. First up, we got Mr. Prometheum here. More hired guns with a stick of dynamite.
It's so random. Necromunda just makes random stuff.
Yeah, but it fits in the end. Sometimes.
Right.
Not all bad. But we got this bounty hunter. And then we got her. By Etis Jet. The female badass bounty hunter here. What are your thoughts?
I mean, they're cool.
Not that
Necromunda.
great.
Yeah. I mean, they're not amazing, but they're not terrible. They're just, oh, this is a cool bounty hunter for Necro. And Necro, the amount of random stuff for Necro, like I was talking to someone about this, one of my buddies last weekend. There's just so much random crap. Like the amount of support Necro gets is actually kind of insane if you think about it. Like imagine if they released a random Orc HQ that had like a dynamite arm and a throwing knife. I'd be like, this is weird and kind of makes no sense.
Well,
But that's every week for Necromunda. Here's a random thing that makes no sense in terms of releases, but it's cool. So here you go.
I mean, it's like what we said like 2 weeks ago, right? This year for Necromunda has been great.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This is probably the most Necromunda has ever gone. Because I remember when we first started the podcast, Necromunda would get like something every 3 months.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was usually a new gang.
And the game was in a good spot in terms of content.
Yeah.
But it was few and far between in terms of new stuff.
Now it's like every week there's a new character to buy.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Soon you'll just have a gang full of hired guns.
You probably could make that right now.
Yeah, because it's just how many characters they release a week.
Right.
Yeah. I may have sounded very negative. I mean, the models aren't bad. Just not as dynamic as some of the other models we have seen in the Necromunda line.
They're just okay. They're cool. They're like generically cool. There we go.
There you go. Generically cool.
So generic.
But I am happy. I'm happy to see them. But I mean, nothing is gonna compare to what we saw last week. Was it last week? The the girl with the void blade.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, nothing's gonna compare to that model. That model was on a whole nother level, and it just breaks my heart that that model is gonna be fine cast or resin or whatever. Either way, not plastic. So pain in the ass. Moving on, we got this year's Boxing Day miniature, and it is a what is it? Not I want no Crip horror. Is that what this is?
No, it's a Ghoul King.
Ghoul King.
Yeah.
It's close enough. Either way, we got this. Doesn't look too bad.
I mean, this is the ultimate tactical rock, where it's a tactical throne that he drags around with him.
He's got his tactical bones this time. That's what he's standing on. But yes, the tactical. It's gonna call him a goblin. Crypt King is here.
Yep, it's a cool model. I mean, Flesh Eater Courts is an army that spawned from what, like 4 kits in AOS. Sorry, from Fantasy, and now it's its own army with its own identity and has its own releases. Granted, they haven't gotten a new unit since Warhammer Fantasy ended, besides new characters. But it's a thing. Like Flesh Eater Courts is a thing, and they even got another unique sculpt for their HQ. So that's awesome.
Oh, so this is already an existing model.
Yeah, this is a alternate sculpt. Now, to be fair, the existing model you can only get in the Zombie Dragon kit if you choose not to build the Zombie Dragon with the rider and you just put the rider on foot. So it's a cool, and actually the model in question doesn't look like a king. It just looks like it's a ghoul leaping. It's like a big scary ghoul leaping from a rock. Now it looks cool, but it doesn't evoke king. I think this model definitely evokes the delusional monarch that the Flesh Eater Courts would have, where he thinks he's a royal king, but he's actually this horrible monster that eats corpses. So
Yes.
this is definitely, I think, a good model for what it's supposed to represent.
Okay. Well, there we go. I think the model looks good. I like it. And now that I know that the only way you could get it was through another kit, I'm glad that this is out. But it's a shame that it'll be at a limited time item.
Yeah.
Which also makes me laugh is that the Crypt King is the holiday gift. And they didn't just go for another holiday kind of model like the Red Gobbo or whatever the Christmas Dwarf is.
Yeah, I like that. I like that it's a real model and not like a joke model.
Yes. There we go. We got that. And then we can move on to the last bit of news we got here. And it's Angrons Rules revealed, which I'm sure they did because Angrons Rules were leaked.
Yeah.
Like the entire World Eaters book has already been leaked. But here's the official nice HD pictures, no blurry pictures. You can actually see all this stuff. And let's just quickly go over this, shall we? So, Angron, let's just go over his base stats here. Movement 16, that's pretty much every Primarch. I'm pretty sure that has wings in the demon side right now.
Sounds about right.
Weapon skill was skill 2, which I find funny because I don't know if he has a gun, but I wouldn't associate Angron with a gun. Strength 9, toughness 7. Seems about right. I think everyone's toughness 7. Morty might be toughness 8 because he's Nurgle, but that's par for the course. 18 wounds. I think is the most wounds of the Primarchs. I'd have to check. because I think Magnus is 16, and I think Morty is 16. And then 12 attacks makes sense. He's all close combat. Moving on to his weapons here. He's getting the treatment that every character, big monster, is getting with 2 weapon types. So he's got his Bloodletting Sweep, which is the AoE attack. He gets 3 attacks instead of 1. So, how many attacks did we say he had? 12. So he gets 36.
36 attacks.
36 attacks. Yep. His strength 9, hitting on 2s. Pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. And then obviously his skull taking slash. Strength plus 5, so it's a strength 14 attack. AP minus 4. E3 plus 3. Pretty much going to kill a knight in one hit if you can get everything to wound.
Mm-hmm.
You're pretty much killing anything with that attack. Even with his AoE attack, he'd be killing everything, even if it was 1 attack. I mean 1 damage. So obviously, he's living up to his skull taking days. He is going to be a beast in combat. And then they give us this Guardometer with how many Primarchs can kill what. Magnus being at the bottom, which I find a little insulting, but it's whatever. I'm pretty sure this is no magic involved.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure this is just based combat. So obviously Magnus is the bottom, Morty there, and obviously someone with 36 attacks is obviously going to kill the most people, especially guardsmen. And then he's got 3 auras that he picks in his command phase. Picks 1 and rotates them out each turn. So let's quickly go over this. Infectious Rage. If you're within 6 inches of him, you get +1 to your attack. So I'm sure Corn Berserkers will be getting a ridiculous amount of attacks when they get in combat. World Eaters, they can reroll 1 to hit. This is for Glorious Bloodletting and Righteous Slaughter. The unit cannot fall back, which is actually really huge if you can pull that off. Assuming you didn't kill whatever you were charging.
Mm-hmm.
Because something like Angron getting in combat with, let's say a horde of guardsmen, and 1 guardsman lives, that's 1 round of not getting shot to death. So that's gonna be a very powerful aura, but obviously you switch each command phase. So gotta plan that out right. Other than that, that's pretty much all this is going to give us. There's obviously other stuff that we could look into, but we're just gonna go with the article.
Yeah, and it does confirm that the ability where he can come back from the dead is there. So
yes. But that is that. That is all our Warhammer news. Well, I'll save it for the hobby rant stuff. These are all the official Warhammer news. Now we have Star Wars Legion. I'm going to leave this into John's hands again, because he knows more into it. So, John, what am I looking at here? What are these points?
So, points update was released with Star Wars Legion. And these points updates, this is the first update in like a year. So, because this year was part of the transition between Fantasy Flight to Atomic Mass Games, because Legion did switch companies, or developers. This is the first points update we got. And overall, big nerfs to, well, I think the nerfs were targeted at dodge spam in Legion, and the cream of the crop of dodge spam are the Pike Syndicate troopers, who come with an ability where they could dodge crits, and if you don't give them an order, they get a free dodge token. and their HQ, the Pike Capo, can hand out dodge tokens to friendly pikes. So you're looking at a lot of dodge tokens on these pikes, and they have abilities that let them roll extra dice if they have suppression, stuff like that. Now they do have white saves, but still, all those abilities, like this unit has more abilities than most elite units in the game, which is kind of hilarious. And they're super tanky. I played against them the final game on the tournament, and I played with them too. I played a bit of pikes in a recent skirmish league, and they're quite tanky with all those dodge tokens, especially because they can dodge crits. And the big thing is they were super cheap. They cost less. A unit of pikes with no upgrades costs less than stormtroopers and is way tankier than stormtroopers and throws out more damage than stormtroopers and rebel troopers and clone troop. Well, maybe not clone troopers. For sure, more than battle droids. It was just a really good unit, really cheap unit. So they got a huge points hike. Now most pike squads are looking at an increase of around 6 points, which in Legion is a lot. I was talking to someone, and actually the list that beat me in the tournament last weekend or last weekend or yeah last weekend, it went up by like 16 points or something. Huge jump in, or more than 16. It was like almost 20 points, a 20-point jump. Because if you take lots of pikes, then you got to pay more points for it. So that was hit. Uh, the ability or the upgrade card Vigilance was hit. It went from 5 points to 12 points. Now, what Vigilance does is it's a command upgrade, so you put it on HQs, and essentially it lets you pick one unit or two core units with a dodge token, and those units get to keep that dodge token at the end of the turn if they still have it at the end of the turn. This is really good in Rebels because Rebel Troopers have an ability where if they use a dodge token, they get a free dodge token. So essentially, they could just cycle dodge tokens, and if you had a rebel commander with vigilance nearby, you could have your rebel troopers keep their dodge tokens, which will make them extra tanky. And the same thing happened for pikes. Pikes could generate a lot of dodge tokens, so having a capo nearby with that upgrade means that you could keeping those dodge tokens and be even a bigger nightmare to deal with for the opponent. But that got a huge point swing, 7 points. That's over a 50% increase. And it while it does rein in pikes, I don't think pikes are nerfed to hell. I think they're still really good. I think they're more appropriate, and most people think they're more appropriately costed now. But the issue with vigilance is it does nerf rebels. So in this list, rebels had no points change. None of their units took a points hit, hike or discount or anything. But the changes to vigilance and offensive push and situational awareness, which are all upgrade cards, definitely hurt rebels because they use those upgrades a lot. So overall, rebels did get hit with a nerf bat. I think I have a list that I was playing around with, and I had to cut an activation just because of all the points increases with that list. It's pretty rough. Droids also got a huge hit. The spider droid with the ion cannon or ion blaster went up 15 points for just the upgrade. It went from 10 to 25 points. That's huge. I mean, it's a pretty powerful weapon, but this feels like overcorrecting a bit for most people. It went from 10 to 25 points. That's a huge increase. So definitely not going to see that anymore. I think in builds. I know I changed my build to just getting the laser cannon and not the ion blaster. And the Magna Guard rocket also went up 6 points, which is also a huge increase. That's the cost of an upgrade. Usually you put tenacity on Magna Guard. And speaking of tenacity, that also went up in points. So lots of increases in upgrades, which definitely hurts a lot of units that use those upgrades. So overall, I think for droids, they also got a bit of a hit with the increases to the Ion Blaster and the Magna Guard. However, on the bright side, droids were kind of hurt in the competitive arena because pikes were a unit that droids didn't have a real counter to. Droids don't have a lot of tech that ignores dodges. And with that, because of that, they couldn't really deal with pikes. But now that pikes are taking a hit, then we should theoretically see more droids coming back to top tables in tournaments. But the nerfs to Ion Blaster and Magna Guard definitely rein them in a bit. Republic, definitely a winner for this points update. Lots of the units got discounts. I mean, Republic's biggest problem pre-patch or pre-points update was their units just cost way too much. Now you see phase twos and arc troopers going back to their original points cost before their points nerfs, which would make sense because their abilities are still nerfed. So I think this keeps them more in line in a more balanced spot. Phase ones also got huge discounts to not huge, but they got discounts on their heavy weapon upgrades. So overall, these units, you know, we'll see more of them, which is good because Republic was definitely the butt end of the power scale. Now they're more mid tier. So excited to see what the future brings for clones. Now, I don't think we're gonna be back in the era of like Captain Rex Death Stars or anything, but I think this will mean that we will see more clones on the table for sure. Now, the big winner of this is Empire because Empire had 1 points nerf points increase to the mortar, the short trooper mortar, and it went up by 2 points. And in fact, it actually got a discount with the Death Trooper. Death Trooper heavy weapon went down 4 points. That's a cost that's an upgrade for them, right? But overall, Empire, they don't really rely on the upgrades like Vigilance. Maybe they do rely on Offensive Push, which went up 2 points. Offensive Push is an upgrade where you could tap it for a aim token when you move. And I use that upgrade a lot on my Empire list, but losing that isn't that big of a deal. It's not faction changing like how not burst of seed, how vigilance and situational awareness were changed, and that definitely forces Rebel and Shadow Collective players to rethink their builds because of those increases. But for Empire, I mean, Blizzard Force, which is the formation that's gaining popularity right now, wasn't really touched. I mean, the only nerf was Vader with Burst of Speed. Burst of Speed is a once per game force upgrade that makes your Jedi speed 3 for a turn, and it went up from 3 to 10 points. Okay, that's not that big of a deal for Blizzard Force players and for Empire players in general. Unless you play Palpatine, then you're kind of paying a lot more for doing the same thing. But overall, Empire definitely came out on top of this. And without the new rules update that we're going to talk about later, I think that Empire will, or sorry, if you don't include the points update, sorry, the rules update in the conversation, Empire was definitely going to be dominating for a while. But with the rules update coming in January, who knows if that's going to be the case? But just looking at the points changes, Empire is at the top right now.
Because they're the good guys, my friend.
Yes, because they are the good guys.
And good guys always triumph.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. Now, the one thing to know about these points changes is that it's gonna coincide. Well, it is out, but they did say that these points don't come into effect until January. Now, if you're playing friendly games, feel free to use these points. And I'm trying to get some games going this week, and we're gonna be using these new points. But officially, they're not going to kick in until January. So if there's any tournaments right now, they shouldn't be using these new points because they're not balanced for the current rule set. They are balanced for the upcoming update, which is coming on January.
Is there a specific date, or is it just January TM?
So actually, if I think we can move on now to the next Legion news, which is the first of the articles that detail changes to the new rules. And the new rules are slated to come out January 16th, so mid-month, mid-January. And to be clear, it's funny because AMG says it twice in this article. This is not an overhaul of Legion rules. This is not like a new edition. This is more like a bunch of erratas that are coming in all at once. So they're gonna re-release the rules so the changes make more sense. The big thing too is so Legion currently doesn't have a rule book. I don't know if you knew that, Matt, but there is no rule book for Legion right now.
Yeah, there is. What are you
Legion's
talking
never had
about?
a rule book.
You get it in the 2-player starter set.
No, that's a quick play guide.
It's got the rules. That's all you need.
It has big rules. So yeah, so it's right now Legion has that quick how to play guide and essentially a glossary of rules explanations, like a giant just a giant index, or sorry, a giant glossary of just like this is what dodge tokens do, this is what aim tokens do, this is what actions are, and units can do two actions, but it's not like a rule book in the way that Warhammer has rule books or Marvel Crisis Protocol has rule books or other games have rule books. So AMG is going to be re-releasing this rule book, quote unquote, in January 16th, and it's going to restructure the rules into a rule book format that most people are familiar with. Because right now, if you tell someone, "Hey, I want to play Legion," like this, what do I need to read, and you give them the quick play guide and the glossary, it's not very intuitive. The hope is this new rule book makes it easier to learn how to play Legion, and it's going to come with some rules changes, not an overhaul of the rules. It's not like a seventh edition, eighth edition kind of change. It's just, again, it's just changing some elements of the rules. And the first thing they talk about in this article is line of sight. So line of sight is getting some changes. Big thing is Legion uses silhouettes for line of sight, so it's kind of like this template token thing that you use. So they're changing the rule where previously you would use the model's head to see if you could see something. Well, now if any part of the model can see any part of the other model, you can see it. Well, when I say model, I mean silhouette. So you use the silhouette to determine line of sight. Another change is trooper miniatures that are bigger than troopers, like dewbacks, speeder bikes, tauntauns. They will have their own silhouette now. Before it would just true line of sight, but now they're getting a silhouette. Another change is vehicles now don't count antennas or weapons or crew members for line of sight. The biggest example of this is the spider droid has an antenna, and rules is written before, and this is clarified in a forum rules ruling. You would count the antenna for line of sight purposes, but now they're saying no. Now you just use the hull of the vehicle to do line of sight.
Yeah,
And
I always hated that.
yeah, I agree. And it's just kind of lame that your unit has this kind of weapon that you built, and well, now it's you could see that you could shoot it,
I
but
mean, it's
now
the
it's
same
more
thing in
like,
40K too.
yeah, which
Peop-
is kind of annoying. It's like, well, I can see Magnus's wing, I could shoot him. It's like, yeah, the rules do say that, but that's kind of lame.
It's that like one tank you try to hide behind the cover,
Yeah,
and because it's like a grab tank, it's like I can see just this like one little centimeter of that model, and that yep, I'm hitting that full damage. Here we go.
full damage. Yeah, I don't like that either, and I'm glad the Legion is, the rules are changing in a way that prevent that from happening. Not completely, but it's gonna lessen that. Some clarifications to how cover work, but the big change, I think, the biggest change I think in this article, besides the rules announcements and when it's gonna come out, is that they changed how line of sight and casualties work. So previously in Legion, you could only kill things that were in line of sight of the attacker. Now, that makes sense, right? But it did lead to these kind of feels bad situations where you would angle your dudes in a way where you could only see the heavy weapon, and they would snipe your heavy weapon. Because in Legion, the player who controls the unit being shot at or attacked casualties, but because you can only remove casualties that are visible, you could game it in a way where you could snipe, quote unquote, heavy weapons or officer upgrades and all that. And I mean, yeah, on one hand it does show player skill, but on the other hand it would just kind of lame where, oh, I should have thought about all these dozens of angles that you could move in, and now my heavy weapon is the first thing that's dead. That sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But they changed it where now you could only remove you could remove casualties regardless of line of sight, but it's balanced out by the fact that a unit can only suffer enough wounds equal to the models that are in line of sight. So, if a squad has to make, let's say, 5 saves, but you could only see the heavy weapon and the unit leader, right, in line of sight, you would only make, and if you fail all of those saves, you could only remove a maximum of two models because only two of them are visible. But now you could remove units that aren't in line of sight, so you could remove the guys in the back and keep your heavy weapon. So now it seems that the only way to remove heavy weapons is through force choke. I think there's some interactions with the Mandalorian's rifle, but that I'm unclear. I know for sure the only way to do that now is via force choke, because force choke says pick a model within range one, it suffers a wound, so you could soul choke the heavy weapon. But in terms of shooting, now it's you can't snipe a heavy weapon or officer anymore because the opponent can choose to remove any model in the unit, regardless of if you can see them all or not. So that's the biggest change I think from this article. But new core rulebook coming in January, I think that's exciting. I don't know about you, Matt, but I'm pretty hyped about this rules update to breathe some life into the game.
Well, I mean, I'm still someone new into it, so the rules change are gonna be a little bit frustrating because I gotta relearn a few new things. But yeah, I'm gonna be happy.
Yeah, and I think that they had that in mind when releasing this rules update. That's why it's not like a new edition. It's just more like changing some elements of the rules. I think movement's gonna work the same, dice are gonna be the same, stuff like that. But yeah, I do agree that it would suck if it was a new edition because the game doesn't need one. I think the rules are fine enough. You just need some tweaks and stuff. And something like this could have been an errata, but because they're changing so many things at once, they're just kind of taking this opportunity to release a new quote unquote core rule book with all these rules updates, but still
Yeah,
keeping the game as is.
yeah. Well, you know why I'm not as mad because at least it's free.
Yes, that is a very good point that I do want to point out. This rule book is a PDF and it will be free. Now, it's also kind of annoying, this is first world problem thing, but I do wish they released a physical copy because I like physical rule books to some extent. But, I think this is better than having a physical copy and no PDF. I think Conquest, which is another game Will and I play, that has a free PDF and a physical rule book with like lore and pictures and stuff. But yeah, Legion, the new Discord rule book will be a free PDF. Don't need to buy it. We just gotta print it out or have some kind of PDF reader like a mobile device to access it. So yeah, I agree. That is great. And some other companies should take a hint.
Well, I mean, they're getting there.
Yes, they're
They,
getting
they
there.
they've done it once. Let's see if they will do it again.
Yep. Well, to be fair, yeah, like Warcry and Kill Team do have free rules, and they did do it for that. So hopefully the big games follow suit.
They've done it once. That's all I can say.
Yep.
Mm, was it Nephilim? It was Nephilim, right? Pretty sure it was Nephilim because it's the newest one. But
Oh, with the points changes, yep.
yes.
That is a step in the right direction for sure.
Alrighty then. Well, is that all the Star Wars news?
That is, I believe, all the Star Wars news. Legion's not dead, guys.
Alrighty
Boba
then.
Fett's coming out on Friday, so I guess it's a lot of piece of Legion news. I'll be picking him up
Hmm.
for my Nerf Rebel army.
Well then, let's get into our hobby ranting, shall we?
All right.
Well, I started last time. I started the last few times. Why don't you go, John?
Yeah, so I just working on some heresy. I finally finished, I think, 3,500 points of Mechanicum. Actually, I needed to put some transfers on one of my robots, and one of my Myrmidons is missing some plasma guns, so I need to find some bit sites and buy those plasma guns. But besides that, like my army's pretty much done, and it's kind of crazy. I'm like, oh wow, this army's, I mean, obviously I have some models that I could add. Like I have some tanks I could paint, but the meat of the army is finished. So I'm pretty happy about that. And I got to play with them on Friday. Played some Zone Mortalis, 1,500 points, and with our buddy Donnie, he was playing his Death Guard, Loyalist Death Guard against my Dark Mechanicum, and it was pretty fun. Zone Mortalis is not balanced. It is definitely a narrative mission. Like the mission was, defender places objectives, and the first objective could be in your deployment zone, and the other two are in the deployment zone that the attacker did not deploy in. And you score turn one, and it's like, oh well, I guess you start scoring, and I don't. And yeah, and the way the mission is, the defender picks the entrance points where reserves come in. So yeah, that was definitely not a balanced game type. But you know what? Sometimes it's not have to be balanced. Sometimes it's narrative. The attacker or the defender doesn't always have the advantage, or it's not always an even game. So that was pretty fun. I highlight was my unit of 3 Myrmidon Destructors with radiation engines, which are torrent. Do you remember the torrent rule, Matt?
I do remember the torrent rule.
Yeah, torrent 12 inches, and strength Fleshbane, which is remember Fleshbane did
2+
2
on
plus to
any
wound,
humanoid characters.
absolutely, and AP3 in this tight corridor in a game where most squads are 10 or more models. They were deleting things left and right for sure. I think they alone killed like almost 20 Space Marines over the course of 2 turns.
That is disgusting.
That was pretty gross.
I feel sick just listening to you talk about this.
I know, right? So that was pretty funny. But I still lost the game. But maybe that was maybe that's the balance in there, right? I had this super crazy deadly unit and I lost the mission because they held the line long enough. But it was fun. I mean, I did say that the mission was very unbalanced, but again, like when you're playing narrative, it's not always an even game, and that's okay. But yeah, it was also great playing in a fully painted Zone Mortalis board. So
Did they
that was.
finally have it fully painted?
I mean, it's like battle ready. We could still do some details and do some what's it called, weathering in some spots. But well, I mean, if you look at it, it looks done. And we are planning to take it on LVO, so it's good to field it for a test run.
Oh, okay. Wow, jeez. All the way to
Yep.
LVO, huh?
Yeah. But yes, that was my gaming last week. Oh, and I played some Magic because one of our buddies few of our buddies just play Magic now, like casual Magic. So like, yeah, I have a deck. I'll play some Magic, and I did win with Abaddon. I won my first 1v1 Magic game ever with Abaddon, so I am pretty happy about that.
See where you're getting into Commander then, huh?
Yeah, pretty much just gonna play Commander. Don't
Makes
want
sense.
to deal with building a deck. That was always my least favorite part of card games, is building a good deck.
I see. No, that was fun. Get all your got all of the fun experiences in.
Yep.
For me, I did what I said I was gonna do. Played some Shadows of Brimstone.
Nice.
Uh, it was a TPK, so
Oh, there we go.
yeah, you know what that is, right?
Yeah, it's when everyone dies. Total
Yes.
party kill.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. Yep, it was a TPK. It was fun stuff. We summoned 3 apparitions,
Oh, nice.
and yeah, it didn't go well. Didn't go well for us. Didn't help that we were already beaten and bloodied,
Yeah.
but unfortunately we traversed the fortress, and we did not come out unscathed. We have some battle scars, to say the least. Hobby wise, getting back into painting up some Shadows of Brimstone models.
Nice.
Just meandering about, not wanting to paint my 40k army at all. or anything GW really, because there's just so much detail on the GW models.
Yeah, I agree. Painting Legion models where there's just enough detail where it looks good,
Yeah,
but and looking at some Chaos Space Marines or something, and it's like, oh gosh, there's like a billion things I could be painting.
yeah.
And it's cool, but it's also very time consuming. And sometimes you just don't want to paint that. You just want to get it done.
I just want to be. I want to be just a fast painter. I want to be a fast painter like John. Okay. I wish I could just sit down and be like, yes, 30 models done in an hour because I know my paint scheme really well. I know the chop. What is it? The chop
Slap.
slap.
Yep.
Slap chop. There you go. Slap chop really well. So, bam bam, done. 30 models done in a day. I got a fully painted army.
Honestly, the secret is to just accept that it's not, it looks fine.
It
Like, could
looks
it look
fun.
better? Yeah, but you know what? It looks fine. That's
That's what I already do. I already be like, hey, as long as it looks good from a distance,
yeah. There you go.
that's what I want. Don't pick up my models and look at it closely because it looks like trash. But yeah, that's what I always strive for. It's just looks good on the tabletop. But I want to have that speed, and
Fair.
that's what I dilly dally in. Is I'm like, yeah, I got this project I'm doing, and then I just stop like halfway through. I'll get through like half the unit and be like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to paint this anymore. But yeah, but I've been painting the Shadows of Brimstone stuff because that is way less detailed than 40k.
Yep.
It's more
That's
like just do the 3-color minimum. Like, all right, this is a tentacle. This one's gonna be a green tentacle, pink suckers, and then high dry brush like a lighter green on the already green tentacle.
Honestly, I think the best army for that is battle droids for Star Wars because it's literally, paint battle droid bone color, which is just, you could either do base coat like a Zanri dust, like a bone base coat, wash it, and then dry brush bone, or you could do the contrast method, prime model white, skeleton horde, then dry brush a light, bone color, and
Mm-hmm.
then contrast the gun is going to be a bright color because of your dry brushing, and you just contrast the gun black and you're done because that's what a battle droid looks like. It just sucks that the battle droids are kind of finicky to assemble because they're pretty much skeletons holding a gun.
They're like old Tomb Kings.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But honestly, like battle droids, like that army is one of those you just feel good finishing a unit because it's just so. I mean, it's a lot. Like a squad is 7 dudes or 6 dudes, while as a stormtrooper squad is 4 dudes. But there's no trim, there's no inlet, there's no eyes. It's just one color for the body, and then the guns are different. Even the backpack's the same color as the body, and you're just done. So
Well, it's easy because, like you said, droids are just
one color.
one color, and then depending on what they are, you paint their head. Like I don't, I'm not a Star Wars fan, so I don't really know what the different ranks are of what the
Yeah,
colors mean. But I know
even
there's
then,
like yellow, blue, and red.
yeah, and even then it's unnecessary. But if you want, you just paint there's like a circular design in the head. You just paint that red. Don't even highlight it. Just paint it red, like base coat it red, because it's so small. And it's like, oh, you're there. You go. He's done. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been up to this week. Probably more Shadows of Brimstone. Depends
Mhm.
on who shows up and if they actually want to play. Otherwise, it'd probably just be some Kill Team or Warcry. I want to get more practice in with my LVL army, but you know, it's also very cold here in LA right now. It's been raining for the past week and still raining. So I don't really like to be outside cold playing in 40-degree weather.
That's totally understandable.
Yes, but some sacrifices have to be made to get the progress done. If only I was like that with my painting. But yeah, that is it. Anything else you want to add?
I think that is it.
Oh, I do want to say a rumor that I've heard.
Oh,
I've heard. Uh, when 10th edition is going to drop, there will be a Space Marine box set that's going to be dropping with a few new models coming out. I'm sure you already know what they are.
the Terminators, right? And Assault Marines.
Terminators, I've not heard.
Oh, okay.
Assault Marines, yes. But there's apparently going to be another, basically the Primaris Devastator unit, pretty much coming out.
So you're saying is there's some kind of Space Marine jump pack unit which you could see in the website banner for Space Marine 2. Interesting.
Interesting indeed. And then obviously a new HQ. I'll let you go ahead and guess what kind of HQ it's going to be.
Jump pack captain, just like the main character of the upcoming video game Space Marine 2.
It's going to be a lieutenant actually, but
Oh, lieutenant. Sorry. I mean, the main
please.
character. Actually, yeah, the main character of Space Marine 2 is a lieutenant. So there we go.
Jump pack, unsure of, but it is going to be a lieutenant. And this is just going to be a Space Marine box. No 2v2 or 1v1 box here. Just strictly Space Marine.
I guess back to Black Templars for a bit for me.
Yeah. So that is a rumor that I've heard just today, actually. Obviously, it's been a while, around for a little bit, but I just heard about it today.
I mean, I believe it because they're in Space Marine 2.
Of course. I mean, we see Captain Titus, jumping around in that new Primaris jump pack that looks like a combination of the oh god, why am I blanking on their names?
The Reavers or the Suppressors?
It's Suppressors and what's the other one called?
I just know Suppressors.
Either way, it's like a combination of the two jump packs, if you look at it, because the Suppressors don't have. I think the Suppressors have the two little thrusters, and then the other ones have the big thrusters, and this one has two big thrusters, bottom wise, and then it has two little thrusters on top. So it's probably going to be the design right there. But we'll see. We'll see how everything pans out, I guess. I just thought I would drop that rumor and see if we come back and see, it's December now, so June is the big months, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 6 months. Come back in 6 months and see if that rumor is true when 10th edition drops. But since we have nothing else left, I'd like to thank everyone who made it to the end, and we'll see you next time.
Later, everyone.